Hello, everybody. Welcome back in to Live and Learn. Hope you all had a great holiday. Enjoyed a Christmas and whatever you do to celebrate. We got New Year's on the horizon. This week, we have our show today. We'll be doing a show on New Year's Day. It's going to be a reaction to the World Junior Games tomorrow, including Team Canada against Team USA. And we'll get into Team Canada throughout this episode and what their tournament has been like so far, as chaotic as it has been. But on Wednesday, we're going to chat about Team Canada. We're going to get into some news like we typically do. However, we are going to talk some predictions for 2025. 5 things I see happening in 2025, and also 5 people in the world of pro sports that I believe will be fired in 2025. So some positive, also some negative to blend it all together. Should be fun. So that's coming up later on in the show. So that'll be on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. New Year's Day, we will have a show to kick off 2025. But since we last spoke, a lot's happened. The world of sports never stops. We have 1 week left in the NFL season, which we will talk about in just a little bit, and what transpired over the last week and change with games on Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. NFL has been going nonstop, loving every second of it. But we must start today with the World Junior Hockey Championships that come and go. It's quick. And I get soaked up into it every year. I love the tournament. It's fascinating. It's the biggest stage that 98% of these players will ever play on. The biggest moment of their career, getting to represent their country, getting to play against some incredible players. And for Team Canada so far, it's been a pretty pedestrian tournament, outside of a few positive notes that we'll get to. They defeat Finland on Boxing Day 4-0. Impressive result. And they didn't play out. They had a great first 2 periods, slowed down in the third, but their goaltender, Carter George, was phenomenal. And they ultimately get a 4-0 win. We then move to the second game, where they meet Latvia. Heavy favorite, obviously. And yet, despite being a heavy favorite, Latvia's goaltender was phenomenal, kept them in the game. Canada's special teams were all over the place, not in a good way. Couldn't create, missing the net constantly, going for the same play with Easton Cowan, shooting from the top right corner, seemingly every power play and missing the net. No success. Latvia scored 2 power play goals, and the game went to overtime, nothing, and then it went to a 8-round shootout where ultimately Latvia upsets Canada. Then they played Germany last night in a game where I thought their third period was their best game of the tournament, their best period of the tournament. They controlled. Germany didn't have the puck the entire third period. They were chasing it, just trying to stay alive, trying to stay in it. They got a pair of goals from defenseman and Oliver Bonk on the power play, and Caden Price on a weird deflection off the goaltender. But ultimately, they win the game, they get some momentum, and they move into a game tomorrow with the United States where if they win Group A, and they will have a great set of circumstances for themselves going in to the back end of this tournament, getting to play either Kazakhstan or, in all likelihood, Switzerland in the quarterfinal game, where they will be a heavy favorite once again. However, there's possibilities that if they lose, they could be third in their division. That could make it more complicated, but we'll get to that a little later. So, online, the easy way to go about this is to talk about the players that Canada didn't pick. Whether it's Carter Yamachuk or Zane Pekeresh or Bennett Seneca. I'm seeing this all over the place. And would I have picked a different team if I was Dave Cameron in Hockey Canada? Absolutely. No doubt about it. I would have picked a different team. But that process is over. Picking the team is done, and you have who you have. I still believe the team that Canada picked is good enough to win the gold medal at this event. They still have a lot of really good elements. They have one of the most talented prospects in all of hockey right now in Gavin McKenna. They have a guy who's on a 56-game point streak in the Ontario Hockey League in Easton Cowan. They have some talented defensemen in Oliver Bonk and Andrew Gibson, who I value quite high because he does so many little things that are just really intelligent for Team Canada. And also, you got a guy like Denton Mateychuk, who can skate like the wind. And I always get Denton Mateychuk is he's a draft pick of Columbus. I get those two names mixed up because that's not who I'm thinking of. But they play incredibly similar. And that's why I get that mixed up. So I apologize. But I find, and who was I thinking? I said it incorrectly. Tanner Molendyk. Tanner Molendyk and Denton Mateychuk, who's now playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets, I get them mixed up because they're quite similar to me. I'll try not to do that anymore. But they have a solid team. And they have Carter George, who has played 2 games and has not allowed a goal. An 18-year-old goaltender in a 19-year-old tournament, quote unquote, has been superb. He's been phenomenal for Canada. He was 6-0 at the U18s last year. In 2 starts, he's not allowed a goal in this tournament. And he firmly has control of the net going into the medal round and beyond. But he's won Player of the Game twice, for good reason. He made some good saves in the second period, where I found that Germany came to play in the second period. They used their energy there, and it was zapped. But they were ready to go. They played incredibly hard, and they had some good opportunities. They had some power plays where Carter George made some big saves and was there in big spots for Canada when they needed him to be. So I wouldn't be concerned about the net because I think they have one of the best goalies. If you look at Trey Augustine, was the guy everybody picked to be goalie of the tournament. He hasn't been very good. He allowed 4 goals against Germany. He allowed another 4 in a loss yesterday against Finland, and a couple goals that, quite frankly, just can't go in, including the overtime winner. So Canada has that edge. Now, I still hate their power play. They changed it for last night's game, and I'll I'll be honest, I hate any power play that has two defensemen on it, especially when you're on an incredibly talented team. Maybe if you're the Detroit Red Wings and you suck and your team construction is horrible, shout out Stevie Y, then yeah, maybe you have to put two defensemen on a power play. But to me, it's a team like Canada should never have two defensemen on a power play. Finland doesn't. The US doesn't. Latvia doesn't. Nations without the top tier talent do not put two defensemen on the top power play unit. To me, it's amateur hour. It never ends up working. I just hate the look. And they put Bonk in the bumper position last night. I get it. But I still think they move the puck slowly. I still think it's lacking creativity. It's very predictable. It's very pedestrian. And it's just quite boring, quite frankly, their power play. It would not scare to play against that unit. If I'm the opposing goaltender, at the end of the day, I know that Canada wants to give the puck to Easton Cowan and for him to shoot at the top of the dot in the corner. Because they've done it about 80 times in this tournament. And Easton Cowan's going to be a really good player for the Maple Leafs. I'm going to start off by saying that. He's a high draft pick. I don't think he's had a very good tournament at all. I don't think Cal Ritchie, who I think highly of, has had a very good tournament either, to be completely fair. And Bradley Nadeau, who was a part of that first line to start the tournament, got bumped down, hasn't had a good tournament either. You could look at them and say their top three forwards have been pretty pedestrian. And I want the New Brunswick kids to succeed. I want Nadeau to be awesome. But when somebody's not awesome, I'm not going to say they are. That's disingenuous. That doesn't serve anybody. So I look at that performance from those guys and I just go, it's lacking. They separated the three, but they kept Ritchie and Cowan together. They don't work. Through 3 games, they haven't. They don't score 5-on-5 goals. They don't score in the power play. They're on the same power play together. So you're left going, okay, why are you guys together? What's the feeling? What are you creating? Not much. When it comes to scoring chances anyway, not much. Predictable, boring, top of the corner, missed the net by 10 feet. Easton Cowan might win a stick handling competition. He's not going to win best player at this tournament because that's all he fucking does is stick handle. If I'm Canada and I'm Dave Cameron, you beat Germany. Way to go. Gold star. Third period was your best period. And yet you needed a goal that banked off the goalie's ass to go in. It was a defenseman on a weird goal. They all count, but looking at it, here's what I'm doing. I'm shaking everything up against the United States. Because the way they're currently playing, they're not going to beat them, in my mind. I'm not touching the line of Berkeley Catton, Gavin McKenna, and Luca Pinelli because it's their best line. It's their best line, and they didn't score last night, but they created the most scoring chances. And I'm also not touching it because Gavin McKenna is their best player. He is young. He is cavalier. He makes some stupid decisions with the puck when it comes to trying to create too many scoring chances. He will learn from and get better. However, he is their best player, period. You can give me anybody else. I'll take Gavin McKenna because he can create something out of nothing better than anybody else on this team. And that includes Nadeau, that includes Cowan. Name anybody. You'll lose that bet. I'll win. Because I'm dealing with an ace and you have a 8 of clubs. So I'm not touching that line because I think Catton has been phenomenal in the tournament. Smart, quick, really sneaky good release. And Luca Pinelli is a hard worker that can get in the right positions and is available for scoring chances. And he works well with Gavin McKenna. So I'm not touching that line. The rest of it can be put in a fucking blender because the rest of it doesn't work. Carson Rakoff, they're not playing. He was a healthy scratch the first 2 games. He was added, and he was basically a 13th forward last night, and he barely played. I would play him more. I would play him more because the guy, what the guy does more than anything is score goals. This team can't score. He scores goals. He's got something like 67 goals in his last 82 games in the CHL. Put him on a line where he can score some goals. Give him a regular shift. I wouldn't play him with Cal Ritchie because I think they're too similar. Put him with Braden Yeager, the captain. Third line with Braden Yeager, and I'd also have on that line, I'd probably have Nadeau. That would be a line for me. Nadeau, Yeager, Rakoff. You have some skill. You have some ability to, Nadeau is incredibly smart. He back checks. You can tell he's been playing pro hockey because to me, he's almost playing like he's still playing in the American League because he doesn't want to do too much and he wants to be defensively responsible, and I love it. Take some more chances. Be selfish. Be a bit of a prick because other guys are doing it and it's turning into nothing. Maybe it'll work for you because you're probably better than the rest of these players because you're actually playing pro hockey. They're playing in the CHL. That's a line for me. And then there's the conundrum of it all. And on that line, maybe you'd swap out. I look at the team and I would not want Ritchie playing with Rakoff because I think they're big bodies and they're similar to me in the way, and they're both shoot first guys. And I want 2 of those on the same line. If you went Ritchie, I mean, they've been going Ritchie, Cowan, Baudouin. That was the line last night. It was okay. It was by no means fantastic. Porter Martin was a healthy scratch. He's projected to be a high pick, but he hasn't really been used. I thought the fourth line was good. Gauthier, Lachenko, and Cataford. So that would leave Howe, Cowan, and Ritchie, which is fine. But again, those 2 together, and maybe you keep them together because you like, and I like the rest of those lines that I put together more than what they put together last night. And you go, you know what? Ritchie and Cowan are so good, they'll figure it out. And they very well could. Because they both are incredibly talented, and they both could be playing in the NHL next year. They both could make the NHL at a training camp. Wouldn't shock me. I think Ritchie's closer than Cowan, but they're both close. Both have a lot that you'd like if you're adding to your team. That lot that they bring to the table that are positive. Just haven't seen it on this team yet. Haven't seen that productivity. Haven't seen that finish that they once had. They don't seem to have it right now. On the back end, they lost Matthew Schaefer, which is a big loss. To me, Schaefer, even though draft eligible, just turned, he's going to be 18 or just turned 18. He was their best defenseman. Loved it. Love his game. He will be, he's only 18 in September. Pardon me. He's got a late birthday. So September 5th. So he's 17 years old. Yeah, he was wearing the full cage. They lose him, and it's a big loss because to me he's their best defenseman. But Bonk was better last night. Dickinson has had a rough tournament. Dickinson's looks a little lost out there, but he brings an offensive punch. I think Caden Price has had a really solid tournament. Like I said, they have 4 quite good D in Gibson, Price, Bonk, and Tanner Molendyke. And they all are pretty good skaters, and they're all pretty smart. And they have a really good goalie. So can they still win this tournament? Absolutely. Has the body of work shown that so far? No. Because it's been pretty pedestrian, and you're left just thinking, all right, well, that was pretty boring. And that's the best that's the best team. These are the best players. Doesn't seem that way. But they get the United States, and the United States lost to Finland yesterday. Canada beat Finland in the opener. The United States have done some stupid things, quite frankly. Yesterday's game, they started to take a lot of penalties. They get frustrated when the puck's not going into the back of the net easily for them. You saw a lot of frustration from them. They have guys that I think are elite. Cole Yzerman has had a really strong tournament. Watch him tomorrow, number 91. It's a first-round pick of the New York Islanders. Liked his tournament. Danny Nelson, another really impressive player. He's had a strong tournament for them. Ryan Leonard, really good player. I think he's frustrated because he's just not getting the puck as much as he'd like. He looked frustrated yesterday. James Haggins, who could go first overall, he's in that mix. He was great. He's been great so far, playing on a line with Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard. That's their top line. Canada has to be aware when those 3 are on the ice because they can create with the best of them. Cole Hudson, brother of Montreal Canadiens defenseman Lane Hudson, Washington Capitals second-round pick, had a really good tournament, plays a lot like his brother. Really creative, good shot. So they have a lot to like on the United States team. But they're kids. Trey Augustine, their goaltender, hasn't been very good. You could blame him for yesterday's game quite easily. Carter George has certainly been better throughout this tournament so far. And they will have that confidence going in that they have the better goalie. I think we get another close game. Canada-US is always fun. Watching them play in Halifax in the semifinal, Canada got the better of them. Canada really dominated the United States. But then the United States go win gold last year in Sweden, where Canada can't even get to the medal round. It's a big game for pride, but it's also a big game because, as I said, Finland plays Latvia tomorrow. I think Finland's going to win that game, despite the fact that Latvia has been feisty as hell. Latvia plays their hearts out. They have a really strong goalie. And they have some legitimate good players. Lazeko is the captain of the St. John Sea Dogs. Their captain, Barons, plays for the Chicoutimi Sagwin. Their goaltender plays for the Sherbrooke Phoenix. So they're pumping out CHL players. These aren't just guys playing at home in Latvia. Coming to North America, getting drafted, productive players, good players. So they have a pretty good team. I think they'll beat Germany today, and I think they'll avoid relegation because I think they're better than Germany, quite frankly, and I think they're a decent little team. And credit to them. But I think Finland beats them tomorrow. Finland likely in regulation, which means that Finland will get to 8 points. Canada and the US both have 7 points going into tomorrow night's game. If it's won in regulation, the winner will get 3 points. The winner wins the group. Now, whoever wins the game will still win the group, but if it goes to overtime, then there's different things that can happen. Canada could finish second, or the US finish second in the group. If they were to finish, if the game was to go into extra time, so that's a possibility. But if it's just a clean game, one of Canada or the US will likely be third and playing either Sweden or Czechia in the quarterfinal on Thursday. And Canada obviously played Czechia in the quarterfinal last year in Sweden, losing the game 3-2. So that could be a fun storyline, getting some redemption. Those two countries have played a lot. They played for gold in Halifax, with obviously Canada getting the better end of that result in overtime. Dylan Guenther with the golden goal. So a lot of different possibilities, a lot of different things that could happen. But Canada, US, they haven't played on New Year's Eve in a long time because they've just been in either the same bracket or it hasn't worked out. Different brackets. It's been complicated, but now they get to meet up for a spot for the top of the group and for your best chance of having a great, like I said, playing Switzerland in the quarterfinal. So you can basically book your ticket that you're going to be playing for a medal. And ultimately, you want to be playing for gold because that's the only thing Canada accepts at these tournaments is when you're playing for gold. Only 2 games today at the World Junior Hockey Championships. You have at 2, Slovakia playing Kazakhstan. Slovakia with a win they'll solidify being third. They'll get third in that division, third in that pool, behind Sweden and Czechia. And they could play a number of different teams yet to be decided in the quarterfinal. But with a win today, they'll kind of lock that up for themselves. They've lost to Sweden. They lost to Czechia yesterday. But they defeated Switzerland. If they can defeat Kazakhstan like the other teams have quite easily, they will beat the number 3 seed and await the games tomorrow to decide who they will be playing. Also, Germany, Latvia. Huge game because the loser likely going to relegation. Latvia already has 2 points, but with a German win in regulation, they will have 3 to Latvia's 2, and that means Latvia, despite the fact that they would have beaten Team Canada at the event would be in the one-game relegation portion and would likely have to beat Kazakhstan in a one-game showdown to avoid being relegated and miss out on the 2026 World Juniors in St. Paul/Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is a fun venue. I like that Minnesota's getting one. Really good hockey city, good hockey market. They love hockey there. Fits in with the time of year, Christmas time, freezing your ass off in Minnesota. I like it. I think it's fun. Good for Minnesota to be getting an event. Hopefully it does better than Buffalo a couple of years ago, where the attendance and the didn't look great on television seeing nobody there. So it made it seem like it was a regular Sabres game. But those are and we also have tomorrow, New Year's Eve, a 4-game slate. We talked Canada, US, but also tomorrow, Switzerland, Kazakhstan at 1. You have Latvia, Finland at 3:30, and then the final 2 games of the day are loaded because they mean so much. Czechia, Sweden, winner of that game wins the group. United States, Canada, winner of that game wins the group. So 2 huge games to wrap up the round robin. A day off on New Year's Day, no games, before returning on Thursday for 4 quarterfinals. 4 quarterfinals that will be kind of the way it's done. It could be 1, 3:30, 6, and 8:30 in Canada will be the last game because they're the host team and TSN gets to pick when they play. TSN gets to say, you know what, we want Canada in prime time. And then the winners will play in the semifinal on Saturday, and then a quick turnaround with the gold medals and bronze medal game on Sunday to wrap up the 2025 World Juniors. So we have a week left, but a lot of fun hockey, some fun games. I love it. And some players that will continue to emerge. Hellenius, the finish for it has been really impressive to me. He's kind of popped. Edward Saleh for Czechia, their captain, draft pick of the Seattle Kraken, has been very good. Axel Sandin Pellikka is tied for the tournament lead in points with 7. Look, he's got 4 goals, tied for first. You have Stancil in there, who's playing for the Czech Republic. Hradek leads the tournament in points and in goals. Impressive. Let's see. Carter George, obviously the best goals against average, hasn't allowed a goal yet. Best save percentage. You have Feldbergs for Latvia. You look at his numbers, they should be better. He's got a .928 save percentage, 3.36 goals against, but that's some tough luck because he had to play the US the very next day, which was not easy, and they played tough in that game. They held on for a while, keeping that game close. So some really good results so far. For Canada, it was not so great at the Spengler Cup this morning. They lost to the Straubing Tigers, who they beat in the preliminary round. So they get upset in the semifinal, meaning that they will miss out playing for gold tomorrow. You have Davos playing this afternoon against Gotteren, another team in the Swiss League. So 2 teams that play each other all the time will meet up in the semi this afternoon. Freiburg Gotteren, the winner, plays Straubing tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. for gold in Davos for the Spengler Cup. The games have been really good. If you're not watching, the games have been really good hockey, I found this year. It's usually good, but the hockey's been phenomenal. Straubing, if they win tomorrow, they would have played 5 games in 5 days and ultimately win. They had a game go to overtime, and they've been through it. Credit to them. Credit to them. Zane McIntyre, Canadian goaltender playing for them, who played for the Iowa Wild last year, former draft pick of the Boston Bruins. This afternoon for Davos, you have Brendan Lemieux in the lineup, who is the son of former NHLer Claude Lemieux. Philip Zadina, former Halifax Moosehead, former first rounder of the Detroit Red Wings, who's had a good tournament so far. So a lot of recognizable names, recognizable faces. Davos, Freeburg this afternoon. The winner of that plays Straubing tomorrow morning to win the 2024 Spengler Cup. So fun stuff internationally. Fun games. Okay. Let's talk some football, shall we? A lot of things are set. A lot of things in the NFL are set with we have a Monday Night Football game tonight in San Francisco, the Lions playing the 49ers. That on paper to start the year was one of the games of the year. ESPN probably bid on it, saying we want that game Monday Night Football. Now it's a bit of an eyesore of a game, but they're going to play it nonetheless. But the key thing from this last couple days, so many things to go through. I have to start with Kansas City. Kansas City wins games close. Kansas City not impressive. Kansas City lost to Buffalo. Okay. They've lost one game since December of last year. One. And that was to the Buffalo Bills. In that time period, they've won a Super Bowl. They've gone 15-1. They don't have good receivers. Mahomes not playing that well. Negative across the board. And yet here they are. Number 1 seed will get the only bye in the AFC. And will only have to play the Buffalo Bills if it's in the AFC Championship game. And that AFC Championship game will go through Arrowhead Stadium, otherwise known as the Arrowhead Invitational, because Kansas City seems to always get home field advantage. The only time they didn't was last year, where they went to Buffalo and beat them. But they should be afraid of Buffalo. Right. Haha. But Kansas City, they just know how to do it. And they're playing better. Xavier Worthy, Mahomes, starting to find a connection with one another, starting to score touchdowns, be creative. They didn't have it early in the year. They didn't, truthfully. But if you look at Xavier Worthy, 59 catches, 638 yards, 11 a catch, 6 touchdowns. Okay, I can deal with that. He also can run the football. 20 carries for 104 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's got 9 total touchdowns as a rookie. I can deal with that. He didn't fumble this year either. It's a pretty solid rookie season for him. Kelsey, not as impressive as he used to be. Only 823 yards receiving, will not get to 1,000. 3 touchdowns, not great, but almost 100 catches, got 97 catches. Doing his thing, there when Mahomes needs him to be. Check. DeAndre Hopkins, Noah Gray, no Rashee Rice, doesn't seem to matter. They just find a way. With Justin Watson had a big week. He caught a big touchdown in the game against Pittsburgh. They go to different guys. But I'm impressed with their offense starting to put it together. Kareem Hunt, Pacheco, both guys, two-headed monster at the running back position. Mahomes runs when he needs to scramble. Mahomes isn't turning the ball over as much as he has in recent weeks. Hasn't thrown a touchdown in 4 weeks. 26 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That's going to be his stat line on the season because he's not going to play next weekend against the Broncos for good reason. Rest up, get ready for the playoffs. To me, they're peaking at the right time. They look like a dangerous team now. They look like a team you don't want to play because they always win the playoffs. They're going to have every game at home. You're going to have to go in and beat them in Arrowhead, which nobody does, in particular in the playoffs, unless it's Cincinnati. But even that was a long time ago, and since then, they've beaten Cincinnati in the playoffs. But I'm just impressed with them. No Chris Jones against the Steelers. Doesn't matter. He's not going to have to play. Mahomes injured. Doesn't matter. They go and beat the Texans and then beat the Steelers within 4 days. Doesn't matter. They win both games. It's impressive what they can do. Good coaching, just intelligence. And they find a way. Period. That's what they do. They're playing better football on offense than they have all season long going into the playoffs. To me, they're playing really good defense like they have most of the season. McDuffie continues to be one of the best defensive players in football alongside Chris Jones. So they are the pace car. Josh Allen might win the MVP for good reason. Lamar Jackson has entered the chat again for good reason. Quite honestly, it's a tough one. And I called Josh Allen winning it weeks ago. And I'd still go with him, I believe. But if you look at Lamar Jackson's, just his numbers overall, he's got more passing touchdowns than Josh Allen. He's got 11 more pass touchdowns than Josh Allen. That's hard to believe. He's got 39 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's also got 4 touchdowns on the ground. 4 interceptions. Josh Allen has had a really good season too. 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Pretty good. Really good. With 12 rushing touchdowns. So make that 40. That's still more for Lamar overall than Josh Allen. Passing yards. Lamar Jackson, more passing yards than Josh Allen. Almost 4,000. Josh Allen at 3,700. Bills, better record. So check for Josh Allen. And that does mean something to me when you have a better record than the other teams. Lamar won the MVP last year. He had the number 1 seed. Not going to happen this year because the Bills locked in the 2 seed. I think the Ravens, with a win on Saturday against Cleveland, will lock up the 3 seed. So they're close, but neither of them are number 1 in their conference. Mark Andrews, 10 receiving touchdowns. That's more than anybody on Josh Allen's team. That could be more about his receiving core. Lamar Jackson this year surpassed Michael Vick for the most rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history, that's incredible. That's a really impressive stat to me. Over 6,000 rushing yards for his career now for Lamar Jackson. It's a close race. And it was a boat race because I think the Ravens had lost a couple games and people had kind of lost faith in them. They're going to win their division. They're going to win it over the Steelers because the Steelers fell apart because they weren't a great team and they don't have a great quarterback. But if you go on FanDuel Sportsbook, which we like to do, And season awards, MVP, Josh Allen is minus 320. So still a heavy favorite. Lamar Jackson plus 250. So it's a discussion. If the argument is you think Josh Allen has been better, absolutely. If the argument is, I don't know, I can't split hairs, but Lamar has two and Josh has none, so let's give it to Josh, that is beyond stupid logic. That is just stupidity. And that happens. There's so many writers, there's so many people that don't watch the team other than the team that they cover, which is fine, but you shouldn't have a vote, just to be clear. But you go, well, I work in this market, or, oh yeah, well, who won it last year? If you ask that question, I already, my antenna is raised because I go, so you're not going to give it to him because he won it last year? If you were the best every year, you should win it. The fact that Jordan and LeBron only have 5 and 4, respectively, is insulting because they're the two best players in the history of the league. I love Charles Barkley. He's phenomenal. He's the best TV guy maybe ever. Any sport, any commentator, he's the GOAT at it. But when he won his MVP, he shouldn't have won his MVP. Michael Jordan should have won it. Michael Jordan didn't because the writers were sick of him and because he had won a bunch before. I don't care. You give it to the best guy. Period. End of story. But no. But the Bills, they're the 2 seed. The Ravens, with a win on Saturday against Cleveland, will be the 3 seed. So unlikely Josh Allen plays another snap this year. I wouldn't play him. And if the Bills are smart, they're playing the Patriots, play Mitch Trubisky. You have nothing to gain in this game whatsoever, except possible injury. You know you're playing the next week. You're going to be playing a home game. So be ready for that game, whether you're playing the Broncos, whether you're playing the Dolphins, whether you're playing the Bengals. Be ready for that game. Play it, and hopefully you'll win. But have everybody healthy. I don't expect them to play another snap. MVP is wide open. But those are locked. Bills have locked in the 2 seed. Ravens, with a win on Saturday, lock in the 3 seed, which I think they will. Texans have locked in the 4 seed. They're 9-7, game left. They have not been impressive whatsoever. They got crushed by the Ravens on Christmas. They are at the Titans. Unlikely they play C.J. Stroud and their starters because that offensive line is an eyesore. They likely will get the Steelers or get the Chargers in the 4-5 matchup. I'd rather play the Steelers. But nobody asked me. AFC, what's still up for grabs? It's the 7th spot, the final wildcard team. In a game that was incredibly thrilling on Saturday, if you didn't see it, I'm sorry that you're social and have friends, but I mean, I got to watch this with my parents, and actually I had a few friends did come watch with me, so that was also fun. Well, I guess Seamus was late, but I mean, can't blame him, I guess. Well, I could, but he missed the drama. But in a twist of fate game where the Bengals should have won it 4 times, and ultimately they did win it, Zach Taylor, who wants to lose that job so badly he wants to lose that job. After a quarterback sneak with a minute and a half left, leaving the Broncos with all that time and a timeout, after allowing them to score a touchdown, after the Broncos being too pussy to not go for a 2-point conversion, after seeing the Bengals on third down, still in good position, moving the ball, settle for a field goal, and doinking it 33 yards. The Broncos 3-0, and finally, Joe Burrow hits T. Higgins for the third time for the game-winning touchdown. Finally, the Bengals won, keeping their playoff hopes alive. So here's what's up there. Broncos are playing the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not playing their starters. Carson Wentz will start the game. Peter Schrager reported yesterday that the Chiefs' third quarterback, Chris Oldakun, could see snaps as well because they want to see what he can do moving forward. So likely all bench guys, no Kelsey, no Mahomes, no Chris Jones, all reserves for the Chiefs. Now that doesn't mean they can't beat the Broncos because anything can happen in a football game. Haven't seen the line yet, but I would lean that the Broncos are a favorite in that game on home field by 4.5, 5 points. That's my guess. And again, I only like to do this. I like to listen to Bill Simmons' podcast because I enjoy it, guess the lines. But if you do know the line, you want to put it in here, please. I just don't want to look it up because then I'll see all the lines for the games. And that ruins my fun. But I think the Broncos will be 4.5 to 5 points. That's my initial guess over the Chiefs Sunday. If the Broncos beat the Chiefs, they are going to the playoffs. Sean Payton, rookie Bo Nix, playoffs in year one. They will be the 7th seed. They will be heading to Buffalo wild card weekend. Now, if the Broncos somehow lose that game, then if the Miami Dolphins, who are at the Jets on Sunday, if the Dolphins beat the Jets and the Broncos lose, the Dolphins are going to the playoffs. They will be the 7th seed. They'll be playing the Buffalo Bills. Tua didn't play yesterday. It didn't matter because the Browns suck. And old Snoop Huntley did enough to get the Dolphins a victory. So if the Broncos lose, Dolphins win, Dolphins going to the playoffs. The third scenario, if the Broncos and the Dolphins lose, then the Bengals, with a win over the Steelers, would be going to the playoffs. They need a lot of help. They need a lot to go right for them. They need their coach not to try to ruin it for them again. But they are the most dangerous team out of the three we just talked about. If I'm the Bills, I'll happily play the Broncos. I have a huge smile on my face if we're playing the Dolphins because they did this a couple years ago and the Dolphins lost up in Buffalo. Dolphins playing in the cold are junk. So I'm smiling if we get the Broncos or the Dolphins. I don't want to play Cincinnati. I don't want to play Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow leads the NFL in touchdown passes. He leads the NFL in passing yards. Jamar Chase leads the NFL in receiving yards. Jamar Chase leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns. Their defense can be atrocious, but Joe, 42 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the year, 70% completion percentage, 109.8 rating as a quarterback. He's been sacked 44 times. 2 touchdown rushes, averages 5 yards a rush. Over 200 yards rushing this year for him. If their team wasn't so dreadful, he would be winning MVP over Josh Allen, over Lamar, because I think he's been better than them. He's had to overcome more stupidity around him. To me, when Joe is playing at his best, he's the second best quarterback in football behind only Patrick Mahomes. It goes Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar, and then Josh Allen. That four. And after that, it's a big fall off because those guys are the creme de la creme. Those guys are phenomenal at the quarterback position. But Joe Burrow's numbers are fantastic. He's been great all season. And like I said, if he was on a more competent, better team, they would be winning. They would be in the playoffs. He would be in the MVP chat. Way higher up. Because currently, he's fourth, but he's at plus 3,000. Because the Bengals are not going to make the playoffs. And you're not going to win the MVP unless baseball, when you're not on a team that makes the playoffs. So, interesting. Still a lot of different scenarios. The Colts got eliminated by losing yesterday to the Giants. Let's touch on this first. Before we move to the NFC, still a couple of things here. Colts lose to the Giants. No Anthony Richardson, but you still lose to the Giants. Two coaches that got hired last year that were coordinators on the Eagles when they got to the Super Bowl. Shane Steichen for the Colts, Jonathan Gannon for the Cardinals. Two seasons where both teams finished under 500. 2 seasons where they didn't make the playoffs. I wonder about job security for both guys. The Colts are just a weird operation. Anthony Richardson was benched for bad play, then put back in, then injured. He's never available. He hasn't really developed as a player under Shane Steichen. He might be more of a coordinator than he is a head coach. I'm not saying he's going to get fired. I'm just putting it in your mind now. Don't be shocked if next Monday, Black Monday, you see that Shane Steichen gets the boot. Because it very well could happen, because 2 years with Indianapolis, no playoff results. And you lose on the second to last game of the season. And they had things go right for them yesterday. The Bengals won. Broncos lost. You're still in it, and you lose to the Giants. You couldn't have asked for a better game, and you lose to the Giants. Shane Steichen, Jonathan Gannon with the Cardinals, really good start, then fell off a cliff. The way they lost to the Rams on Saturday night with that interception from Kyler. They're 7-9, same exact record. Look out for those two guys. Still in the AFC. Giants. Oh, the Giants make me laugh. The Giants are so incompetent, they can't even get the first overall pick. They're so bad at that. The Giants beat the Colts, and by beating the Colts, they now drop from the first pick in the draft to the second pick in the draft, giving it to the New England Patriots, who are in the catbird seat with a lot of different options. And we'll talk about that more as we get closer to draft season. But the Giants just amaze me. Drew Lock said, "We don't tank around here." Oh, that's good stuff. I love it. It's funny. He had a hell of a game. 17 for 23, 309, 4 touchdowns. They had a kickoff return for a touchdown, 100 yards. The Giants, Malik Neighbors, Rookie sensation 7 for $1.71. Whew. Boy, he looked good with Shador Sanders. Oh wait, maybe not. It's funny. Or Cam Ward. Oh wait, maybe not. Now you might have to trade draft capital to get the first pick to take who you want. If I'm the Patriots, there are stupid teams out there, the Giants being one of them, right at the top, that will trade up to draft a quarterback. Look at the Giants with Daniel Jones. And they'll give you good stuff. And you could stay, have the second pick in the draft, and still take the player that you want. Even if it's Vegas, even if it's Jacksonville, you stay in the top 5, and you probably get to take the player that you want. It could be Travis Hunter, the wide receiver / cornerback out of Colorado, the Heisman Trophy winner. Interesting. They do need wide receiver help. Always an option. It could be Kelvin Banks, who's an offensive lineman that they also need because their offensive line sucks. And they need to make sure that Drake May has a brain to go out there and play. That's an option. All I'm saying is they have a lot of things to play with in New England. And they're going to play the Bills next week. And yeah, the Bills will be resting their starters. I still don't think that they have enough to beat the Bills. But it's interesting, nonetheless. But the Giants, my God. Oh, but I feel so bad for the Maras. As if, screw them. Oh yeah, the Jets, before we leave the AFC. The Jets. 4-12. Aaron Rodgers reportedly benched himself in the fourth quarter. Don't know how that works. I've started watching Enigma on Netflix. I've read his book over the last month or change. Right before Christmas, I read Aaron Rodgers' book. Interesting. I still like the guy. I think he's interesting. I feel bad for him in certain sense, where with his family life and it's the way certain things went and the way he approaches things. I feel bad for him. And some people might hear that and go, why would you feel bad for him? He's a narcissist and he's all these different things. He's not that good a person. I hear you. Fair. But I just don't think he's that happy of a guy, and I feel bad for him in that sense, that he's not that happy. But he's cooked. He's done to me. I don't see him going to another team next year and having much success. I think Aaron should retire. I think that's all she wrote for him. Just decide, you know what? Yes, I've had a fantastic career. I'm going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But this Jets period has been a flat-out disaster for me. It's been ugly. So let's go in a different direction. The Jets, if they want to keep Garrett Wilson, they have to get rid of Aaron Rodgers because I think he's going to demand a trade. He might demand a trade anyway. They need another quarterback now. They thought they had their future for a couple years in Aaron Rodgers. They don't. They need a new GM. They need a new head coach. Rex Ryan was on Get Up this morning on the mothership saying he expects to interview for the job, and I actually don't think that's the worst guy to hire. Rex Ryan is in the media. He makes lots of outlandish statements. He's got whiter teeth than anybody on planet Earth. But I don't, they're a mess. He wouldn't be the worst because they need a new culture. They need something to shake it up, to have a better feeling about what's going on. Something to bring in a just new energy to that team. Because they're in a bad place right now, the Jets. Embarrassing loss to the Bills yesterday. 40-0 at one point. It's tough. Let's move to the NFC. Sunday Night Football. This upcoming Sunday, we got Lions, Vikings. The winner of that game will be the number 1 seed in the NFC. It doesn't get any better than this. A showdown on Sunday Night Football, and the winner gets a bye. The Lions will be on a short week because the Lions are in San Francisco tonight. They're not resting anybody for that game. Dan Campbell doesn't believe in that. He's playing his boys tonight full out to be ready to play the Vikings. The Lions, who are 13-2, the Vikings, who are 14-2. Crazy. Lions lost to the Bucs earlier in the year. That was one of the losses, and they lost to the Bills. They beat the Vikings earlier this year in Minnesota, but Minnesota's gotten better since then. Minnesota is 2-0 this season against Green Bay, just like Detroit is. I thought Green Bay would win yesterday, even though they were on the road. But Sam Darnold continues to amaze. Continues to over 4,000 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 picks. Incredible. Justin Jefferson, almost 1,500 yards receiving. Addison, 870. He could get to 1,000 by the end of the year. He missed some games. Aaron Jones has been a good addition to the team. TJ Hawkinson's been good since coming back from the torn ACL. Their defense under Brian Flores has been just ferocious all year long. Attacking, I think you could argue the Vikings defense and offense is the best coach team in the league, period. And I still have my doubts about them, but I also go, this team's really talented. They are really, really good. Jefferson's the best receiver in football. He can make any catch. Darnold is confident now, making throws. Looks like the old version of himself in college, the way he's playing, but he's never played this good in the NFL. And I'm just stoked for that game. That's an awesome Sunday night game. It has huge stakes. Two awesome teams. It's crazy that the Rams, who are 10-6, the Buccaneers, who are 9-7, will host a playoff game, and one of the Lions or the Vikings, who will have 3 losses, will be going on the road to play likely Tampa wild card weekend, which is crazy. That's going to happen. Vikings or Lions will be going to Tampa wild card weekend on the road. One of those teams will not have a home playoff game throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Crazy. The rest of it, Eagles crushed the Cowboys yesterday. I thought the Cowboys could keep it close. They didn't. Didn't matter. Kenny Pickett, Tanner McGee, first reps. Big quarterback out of Stanford, 2 touchdown passes. Eagles are 13-3. They locked in the 2 seed in the NFC. Rams, they beat the Cardinals, then they needed a bunch of teams for strength of schedule. They got it. So the Rams, 10-6, they have clinched the NFC West. They are likely going to be the 3 seed in the NFC. 4 seed, as we currently stand, are the Bucs. If the Buccaneers win on Sunday, they will be the winners of the NFC South, and they will be the 4 seed for the second straight year. They host the Saints Sunday afternoon. Win that game, they are headed to the playoffs. Baker Mayfield had 5 touchdown passes yesterday. He's had a great season. The Lions or the Vikings will be the 5th seed. That'll depend. The loser Sunday night. Commanders defeat the Falcons in overtime last night. That means the Commanders clinched a playoff spot. First year, Jaden Daniels, they are going to the playoffs. 11-5. He passed Robert Griffin III, who played for the Washington football team, the most rushing yards in a rookie season by a rookie quarterback ever. Over 800 on the season. He's got, we can go to it here. He has 864 rushing yards this year, Jaden Daniels, with 6 rushing touchdowns. He also has 25 touchdowns through the air. So really, he's going to win Rookie of the Year, if you ask me. But Commanders going to the playoffs, year 1 of Jaden Daniels, year 1 of Dan Quinn. Green Bay is also going to the playoffs, but Green Bay losing to Minnesota. They are now the 7th and final playoff team. Commanders and Packers both have 11-5 records. Commanders close out their year at Dallas. Be curious to see if they play their starters or play them for some of the game. Green Bay finishes their season hosting the Bears. So I think we'll see if teams really care about their matchups, about where they end up. Because by the looks of things, the Commanders would play the Rams in Los Angeles in a dome, which doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world. Doesn't sound that horrible. For Green Bay, they'd have to go play the Eagles in Philadelphia. Now, they're used to the cold. These two teams played in week 1 in Brazil. The Eagles came out on top in that matchup. But if you look at Green Bay, their 5 losses: Philly, Minnesota twice, Detroit twice. The good teams that they've gone up against, they lose every time. They lose to the very elite teams. So it's hard to pick them. It's hard to say, okay, you haven't beat anybody good all year. You're going to go to Philly on the road in a playoff game and beat them. Could happen. Unlikely, though. Seahawks eliminated. Falcons are the only team in the NFC still alive because they could win the NFC South if the Buccaneers lose on Sunday and they win against Carolina. But they need help to get in. So that means teams like the Cowboys, the Cardinals, the 49ers, all eliminated. A lot of bad teams in the NFC. If you look at the bottom end of it, it's pretty weak. Okay. Because I look Lions, Vikings, Eagles. Those are the teams in the NFC. 3 best teams. Better than Green Bay. And I wouldn't want to play any of them. And one of them's going to be on the road, which is crazy that's the way it's going to work because it's division. You win your division, you get a home playoff game. Kind of like college football, where it's weird in that situation. But fun stuff. So some games next weekend that won't mean much. But the curiosity will be, who do they play? Do they dress them the entire game? Why did they do it? Are they playing Josh Allen because they want to try to improve his stats for him to win the MVP? Are they doing the same thing? Well, Lamar's going to play regardless because they haven't clinched the AFC North yet. How does he play the whole game? Is he chasing statistics? All curiosities to me. Who do the Ravens want to play in the playoffs? Would they rather play the Chargers or play the Steelers? I know my answer. Steelers. But do the Ravens? It would be fun to see another Harbaugh Bowl. This time in Baltimore. John against Jim in the playoffs. So all that still to be decided going into the final week. And we also have 49ers Lions tonight. Let me go to that game. It is Lions minus 3.5. And I find this line puzzling, I'll tell you. The 49ers are missing all kinds of guys. They're eliminated from playoff contention. Yes, the Lions defense is banged up. But, I mean, Jared Goff's playing. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. I mean, no Montgomery. I'm taking Lions minus 3.5 on the road to get the win. Have momentum going into their huge Sunday night showdown at home against the Minnesota Vikings. But I find that curious. I find that's an interesting line, but I'm going with the Lions because I don't think they're looking past this game. I think they want to win it. I think they want to send an early message to Minnesota that they mean business and that they are the best team in the NFC, despite the fact that injuries have ravaged them the last little while. So over the next couple of days, we got a lot of stuff going on. We get NHL, which we're going to get into, of course. Just to me, it's taken a bit of a backseat to the World Juniors and a bunch of other things. But Austin Matthews missed his first couple games back for the Maple Leafs. Doesn't sound like he's going to play tomorrow afternoon against the Islanders, so he's going to miss technically his 5th straight game. Alex Ovechkin returned. He's got goals in back-to-back games. He still could break Wayne Gretzky's record this year. He's 24 goals away from tying Wayne's 894 goals. I think he'll break it this year because he's a Terminator. See, Ottawa loses to Winnipeg, then beats Minnesota last night, second night of a back-to-back, because they have continuing their 9-game road trip. Impressive. The Detroit Red Wings fired Derek Lalonde. They will soon fire somebody else. That might be on the list on Wednesday's show, so stay tuned for that. But Derek Lalonde fired as head coach. Todd McClellan brought in as the interim head coach in his replacement. They are 1-1 since the firing. Edmonton loses in LA and then loses in Anaheim back-to-back. Oof, rough road trip for them. We got a bunch of games. Winter Classic, if you're into that, I'll probably check it out. St. Louis, Chicago, at Wrigley Field, which is cool. Cool venue. Two teams where, yeah, they're both not great, but I like the rivalry. I like the venue. It's like seeing a bowl game at Yankee Stadium or at Fenway. It's cool. So you got that tomorrow after you got World Juniors tomorrow. You also have, beginning tomorrow evening, the college football playoff quarterfinals. 4 games between now and the end of Wednesday. And I'm going to give you the lines just for fun, just because you want to bet New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. You have some good bowl games before then, but you have Penn State, Boise State. And that's in Arizona. Penn State's 11.5-point favorite against Boise. I'm just going to find the location of all these games because they should be home games, if you ask me. Because they're in the bye, give them a home game. But I know the first one is in Arizona. Locations. Just going to find this. So, let's see here. So the Verbo Fiesta Bowl is at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. So I had that right. Sunday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, New Year's Day. 2 o'clock kick is in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, which is the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. So that'll be Wednesday afternoon, and that is Texas playing Arizona State. Arizona State 12.5-point dog in that game. Then you have the Rose Bowl game, which is always fun to see a game at the Rose Bowl, and that's between Oregon and the Ohio State. Great location, great game. Ohio State, lower seeded team, favored by 2.5. That's 3 straight teams that played in kind of the wild card round, all favored in their games now. And then you have Notre Dame and Georgia, and they are playing in New Orleans, I believe, in the All-State Sugar Bowl, and that is in the Superdome in New Orleans. And Notre Dame is a 1.5-point dog to Georgia, despite the fact that Georgia was without their starting quarterback. We went 4 for 4 on college picks during the quarterfinal, including the spread. Penn State, 11.5-point favorite against Boise. I like Penn State. I like this matchup for them. If they can stop the run, Boise's in big trouble. They have Ashton Jeanty, who's awesome, but if they can't run the football, they don't have a chance. Penn State's defense also can come up with turnovers. I think Penn State will cover the 11.5. I think Penn State, I wouldn't even consider buying the points. I like Penn State to win the game. I like Penn State to cover. Penn State by at least 2 touchdowns. Penn State minus 11.5. Texas, 12.5 against Arizona State. Texas was our closest game when it came to gambling, with me getting it wrong with Clemson, but it was ultimately a push. Arizona State has a great running back named Cam Scatabo. They have a quarterback who has some good mobility that can extend plays and create things with his legs. But Texas has so many more weapons. Blue, their running back, can create things. 12.5, it's a lot of points, but it's a neutral field. It's not as if this is in Arizona State. I like Texas minus the points. Ohio State, Oregon. They played earlier in the season. Oregon won the game. Oregon was at home. At the Rose Bowl, this is much more a home game for Oregon than it is Ohio State. They have to go to the West Coast across the country. Ohio State dominated, and I mean dominated, Tennessee. But this isn't in shitty weather. This is going to be in SoCal. Dylan Gabriel, the most starts in college football history. An Oregon team that's rested, refreshed. This is a close game. It's going to be the best game of the day. I like Oregon plus 2.5. I think they win the game outright, but I think for sure they cover that spread. They keep it close. They win the game. Oregon plus 2.5. And the last game of the day, you know where I'm going with this because I have Notre Dame at least getting to the national championship. I have them in on a ticket already. Notre Dame plus 1.5. I thought they'd be favorite. I'm surprised that they're not the favorite because Georgia's without Carson Beck. He's already declared for the NFL draft because he had surgery on his shoulder and on his elbow. Yes, it's a backup, but he's hardly had any reps. I like Notre Dame to win this game in New Orleans as an underdog. Notre Dame plus 1.5. They get the big victory. So those are some college football picks over the next couple of days. We will be back on Wednesday morning, New Year's Day. We'll react to Canada versus USA. We will react to NHL storylines. We'll talk about the Winter Classic. We'll also get into 5 predictions for 2025 in the world of sports and 5 people that I predict will be fired in 2025 at some point. So that's all coming up on Wednesday. Until then, Happy New Year. Enjoy your holiday and stay safe as always. This is Live and Learn, and I'm your host, Noah Warren.